As soon as TJ Lane walked in, he was taking off his button-down shirt to reveal this, a white t-shirt with the word killer scribbled on it.
Get off my yo, that's what you can do. Get off my
I guess you're the one. He's the one. Do it.
Childhood is meant to be a time of innocence and play, but to these kids, it became a ground for violence and darkness. Amarjeet Sada is believed to be one of the youngest serial killers in history. He was born in 1998 in Bihar, India, and at just 8 years of age, he had already killed 3 children. His murdering spree began with his 8-month-old cousin. Sada took the baby to a secluded area and brutally murdered her by beating her with bricks. He then turned to his 6-month-old younger sister, who he killed in the same brutal way. That same year, Sada went after his neighbor's 6-month-old baby, Khushbu. He lured the baby away while her mother was distracted, took her to a field, and strangled her before bashing her head with a brick. He then buried her in a shallow grave. His parents soon discovered what Sada had done. But rather than taking him to the authorities, they helped him hide the murders. However, when the locals began looking for Khushbu, the young serial killer casually confessed to the murders. During his chilling interrogation, Sada, disturbingly calm, smiled as he revealed all the gruesome details behind his crimes. Because of his age, he was sent to a juvenile home rather than facing adult charges. His crimes shocked India and the world, sparking debates about juvenile justice and how such extreme violence could come from someone so young. He was released in 2016 at the age of 18, and now, at 27, little is known about his life.
I just stabbed mom.
You stabbed your mom?
When she was walking away, I had to go for a neck, but, you know.
This is the moment Michael Bever told police how he brutally murdered his entire family for fame.
So did you guys have a goal? Did you have a number?
He just wanted, I think he wanted to kill like 50.
On July 22, 2015, brothers Michael and Robert Bever brutally murdered 5 members of their family in their Broken Arrow, Oklahoma home. The Bever brothers were homeschooled in a strict household, which made them incredibly frustrated and isolated from the outside world. To make matters worse, the family had a history of instability, with the parents reportedly being emotionally neglectful. During that period, Michael and Robert became obsessed with school shooters and mass murderers, wanting to become America's most infamous spree killers. The 2 siblings spent hours watching this disturbing content as they fantasized about how they would murder their family.
He says he hates everyone. He thinks society is pointless, and so he wanted to kill people. And also he wanted to like beat the kill amount of other famous people like Columbine and.
After months of research and planning, the 2 brothers decided to act on their instincts and created a plan. The pair purchased body armor and weapons, including 2 semi-automatic rifles and several knives. First, they lured their 13-year-old sister Crystal into their bedroom. Then, Robert grabbed her from behind and stabbed. When their mother came to investigate the noise, the 2 brothers turned on her too, stabbing her a shocking 48 times. They stabbed their father 28 times. Robert then lured his 7-year-old brother, Christopher, and 5-year-old sister, Victoria, by allegedly pretending to be under attack. They then stabbed Christopher 6 times and Victoria 18 times. Upon seeing Robert murdering his family, younger brother Daniel ran to his father's office, escaping from his murderous sibling, and called 911.
Broken Arrow 911. Hello?
My dad's attacking my family.
Your dad is attacking your family?
No, my dad.
Authorities dispatched officers to the scene. Robert tried to convince Daniel to leave the office, but Daniel refused to open the door. It all seemed like Daniel was going to make it out alive. However, everything changed when Michael came to the door. Daniel was only aware that Robert was behind these shocking killings and let Michael in. It was then that Michael and Robert turned to Daniel and stabbed him 21 times. Police arrived at the scene shortly after the call, with the teens fleeing the scene and attempting to escape through the woods. Authorities tracked them down with a K-9 unit and found them hiding beneath a bush.
Robert and Michael's plan was then to take the family vehicle, leave Oklahoma with the guns and ammo, and stop at populated areas at random and kill 5 people each.
Thankfully, 2 of the brothers' siblings survived the attack. Despite being stabbed multiple times, Crystal was still alive when police arrived. Both brothers were tried as adults and charged with 5 counts of first-degree murder. Robert tried to convince the court that he had been the key perpetrator and that Michael was only involved in luring their siblings out of hiding. Despite his best efforts to spare his brother, both the teens received multiple consecutive life sentences. The Bever brothers will likely spend the rest of their lives behind bars. This teenager broke into his neighbors' homes and killed everyone inside. But the most chilling aspect of this murderer is how he confessed to his crimes.
I was like, oh, what the hell? I ran into the kitchen. On top of the refrigerator was a knife. And I just killed him.
Craig Price, also known as the Warwick slasher, grew up with a mother who struggled with alcoholism and often neglected her children. Their relationship was difficult and often volatile. This shaped his violent tendencies to the point he felt the urge to act on them. Price's reign of terror began in 1987, when he was just 13 years old. On the night of July 27th, he broke into his 27-year-old neighbor, Rebecca Spencer's home, where he proceeded to stab her 58 times. In 1989, when he was only 15, he broke into the home of another neighbor, 39-year-old Joan Heaton, stabbing her over 60 times with kitchen knives. He then turned on her two daughters, Jennifer, 10, and Melissa, 8, stabbing both of them multiple times. The attacks were so violent that the handles of the knives broke off. Surprisingly, Price was able to evade detection for nearly 2 years. But everything changed when Price was arrested for a separate, unrelated charge of burglary in 1989. During his interrogation, investigators started connecting him to the unsolved murders based on forensic evidence. Additionally, Price had made several inconsistent statements, which led the police to build a case that pointed to him as the killer. It was then that Price confessed to the shocking crimes.
How did you hurt your hand?
When I was stabbing, I guess I got careless or something. And I stabbed my own finger.
He openly confessed to all 4 murders, describing his actions without remorse or emotion, which only added to his notoriety. Price claimed he committed the crimes because he enjoyed the act of killing. At the time, Rhode Island law stated that minors who committed violent crimes could only be held until their 21st birthday, regardless of the severity of their actions. This led to public outrage, with many calling for harsher penalties for juvenile offenders who committed such heinous acts. But despite the shock and horror surrounding his crimes, Price was sentenced to a juvenile facility where he was expected to be released when he turned 21, sparking a debate that would lead to significant changes in juvenile justice laws in Rhode Island. Price's time in prison, however, revealed that he was far from rehabilitated. His violent tendencies didn't end when he was incarcerated.
When you get out, get off my yo, that's what you can do. Get off my
While serving his sentence, he was involved in multiple violent incidents, including assaults on prison guards and other inmates. He was also charged with several new crimes while behind bars, including criminal contempt and extortion. The fact that he had committed such brutal murders at such a young age, without any sign of remorse, only deepened the fear that he could eventually be released to commit even worse crimes. In 2004, he was transferred from a Rhode Island prison to one in Florida due to his violent tendencies, but that did little to quell the growing concern over his future. In addition to his criminal activities behind bars, Price's case has continued to stir debate over the treatment of juveniles in the criminal justice system. His actions led to widespread calls for reform, and eventually, Rhode Island enacted new laws that allowed for juveniles who committed serious crimes to be tried as adults, though these laws could not be applied retroactively to Price. As of today, Price remains incarcerated, his crimes serving as a chilling reminder of the potential for extreme violence even in the youngest members of society. Teenager James Fairweather nearly got away after committing some of the most brutal murders of all time. His upbringing was incredibly difficult, dealing with feelings of anger and isolation. He had struggled with personal issues, including bullying and undiagnosed dyslexia, which affected his school performance. It was then that Fairweather turned to violence. He was later charged with knife-point robbery and criminal damage, suggesting a pattern of escalating violence. His killing spree began on March 29, 2014, when he brutally murdered 33-year-old James Atfield in Colchester, Essex. Atfield, a father of 5 with a brain injury, had been enjoying a drink in Castle Park when Fairweather attacked him with over 100 stab wounds, leaving him to bleed to death. Details were considered too gruesome to describe. Fairweather's second victim, 31-year-old Nahid Al-Manea, a Saudi student at the University of Essex, was killed just 3 months later on June 17th. She was stabbed multiple times. According to Fairweather, he wanted to prevent her from seeing evil. Both murders were carried out with shocking cruelty, and Fairweather's delusional claims during his trial further illustrated the severe mental health issues that likely contributed to his actions.
Some voices were talking to me. You need to make a sacrifice, or we're going to come and get you. You need to do it. And I saw him. It was laying on the grass, like that. It was like just fast asleep, where he was drunk. And he goes, he's the one. Do it.
It wasn't until May 2015, after he had begun planning a third murder, that he was apprehended. In January 2016, Fairweather pleaded guilty to the 2 murders, was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 27 years. The case of James Fairweather raised significant concerns about the mental health of young offenders, particularly when the delusions and psychological issues behind his actions were so clear. His brutal murders were not just random acts of violence, but part of a larger pattern of disturbed thinking, and his delusional statements indicated that his actions were likely driven by serious mental health problems. Fairweather's case serves as a disturbing reminder of how untreated mental illness can manifest in violent behavior. TJ Lane is the name forever associated with one of the most devastating school shootings in recent American history, the 2012 Chardon High School shooting in Ohio. On February 27, 2012, Lane, then 17 years old, opened fire in the school's cafeteria, killing 3 students and injuring 3 others before fleeing the scene. Armed with a .22 caliber handgun, Lane targeted a group of students at random, shooting them as they sat in the cafeteria. The victims, Russell King Jr., Demetrius Hewlin, and Daniel Parmertor, were all innocent young people whose lives were tragically cut short in an instant. The shooting was swift and brutal, leaving the community in shock as the horror unfolded in real time, with survivors frantically calling 911 and reporting Lane's actions as he fled the scene. Lane's capture was swift, but his motives remained unclear for some time. In court, he offered little explanation for the attack, aside from a chilling, emotionless demeanor and a sense of detachment that bewildered those around him. From the moment he entered court, Lane immediately tried to cause a reaction by wearing a t-shirt with the word "killer" written across it. He had worn the same thing during the shooting. During sentencing, Lane smirked as he listened to statements made by his victims' families.
"I hate you for the pain you have caused, Nick. You chased him down the hall and fired the last bullet that paralyzed him."
Things I was looking forward to, I will never get to see. My baby brother graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, get married, have children. I will never be an aunt, and my children will never know their uncle.
His lack of emotion and apparent indifference shocked both the survivors and the families of the victims, making it difficult to understand the true reasons behind his violent outburst. Lane pleaded guilty and received 3 consecutive life sentences without parole. The Chardon High School shooting not only left a lasting scar on the community, but also served as a grim reminder of the tragic potential of unchecked anger and despair. It remains one of the most haunting examples of violence in an American school, marking another grim chapter in the history of school shootings. The stories of these young killers serve as a stark reminder of the terrifying potential for violence, even in the most unexpected places. These tragedies leave behind lasting scars on families and communities, raising difficult questions about mental health, youth violence, and the role of society in preventing such horrors. While we may never fully understand the reasons behind these acts, their impact continues to shape how we approach justice and care for troubled individuals. Thank you for watching Crime 101. Let us know in the comments what or who we should cover next. Be sure to subscribe for more.